The dawn light fractured through Aegis Station's observation dome as Lieutenant Commander Celine Ramirez watched twin suns rise over Viridian 3. The sky burned in apricot and violet, a solemn reminder of both beauty and danger. Memories of her last mission, when a miscalculated strike cost innocent lives, gnawed at her resolve. Today, she vowed, the ambassador would live. Clad in her matte black uniform, she brushed a fingertip over the insignia at her collarbone, Earth Federation Security Liaison. No failures this time. No regrets. The council atrium buzzed with anticipation as Celine marched its translucent walkways. Delegates from the Arborian Consortium and the Hosian Technate mingled beneath hovering lanterns of bioluminescent algae. Each bore unique regalia, feathered helms, crystalline staffs, ornate bioengineered tattoos. A hush passed when she intercepted Vorth, the Crethean emissary, whose obsidian carapace gleamed under holosignage. His lips curved in a polite greeting that never reached his cold eyes. Celine inclined her head and resumed her circuit, scanning every face for subtle shifts, a nervous glance, a trembling hand. Behind sealed doors, Ambassador Khalid Umar waited. At 50, his hair was shot through with silver, but his gaze remained steel-bright. "Celine," he said, voice warm yet edged with hope. "If we secure council membership today, Earth's voice will carry weight among the stars." He unfolded a hollow scroll of treaty clauses. Celine studied him, surprised by the flicker of vulnerability beneath his diplomat's poise. She placed a steadying hand on his arm. "We'll see it through," she promised. Then, a faint echo in her wrist pad pulsed, unauthorized chronodisplacements registered near the staff entrance. On a service walkway, she found a figure cloaked in adaptive weave, fingers dancing across a security console. With fluid precision, Celine drew a stun baton and knocked the operative off balance. In one motion she cuffed him, crouched low. The attacker's helmet skidded free, revealing pale, sweating skin and panicked eyes. "Who hired you?" Celine demanded. The operative stammered fragments of Crethean directives before slipping into muttered gibberish. "Enough." She dragged him to a side chamber to await station guards. The ticking in her earpiece reminded her, time was already vanishing. As the gala commenced in the crystal-lit grand hall, ambassadors raised their flutes filled with ambrosium, its pale gold glow reflecting on polished floors. Umar's speech rose like a tide: unity, cooperation, the promise of shared prosperity. Celine's gaze swept every corner, over holographic banners, across spiraling balconies. That's when she saw it, a flash of red under a sculpted pillar. A gauntlet hand tensed around something metallic. For a heartbeat, silence reigned, punctuated only by the ambassador's final vow: "Together, we stand stronger." The crack of a magnetic accelerator shattered the moment. A monofilament dart sliced through Umar's neck before he could finish. Silence fractured into screams. Celine dove forward, baton crackling, but the assassin disappeared in a plume of injected hollow smoke. Panic rippled as dignitaries fled, knocking over tables laden with exotic hors d'oeuvres. Blood arced in slow motion, staining the pale deck. Celine reached the ambassador's side, pressing her palm to the wound, but his life faded beneath her fingers. Steel shutters thundered shut, sealing the chamber. Automated sentry turrets pivoted, scanning for movement. Holographic shields flickered in the doorways as security protocols ignited. Celine slung Umar's inert body over her shoulder and sprinted down a side corridor. Each labored breath echoed against alloy walls. Near the exit, she paused, slipping the assassin's glove fragment, woven of Crethean spider silk, into her pocket. Its iridescent strands were a smoking gun she intended to deliver. Moments later, the Crethean delegation erupted in outrage. Their lead envoy, mouth curled in theatrical grief, pointed accusing fingers at human guards. "This atrocity reeks of Federation sabotage," he snarled. Holopanels across the station lit up with warnings: sanctions, war flags, mobilize. Celine burst into the council chamber, data pad in hand. She uploaded spectral scans of the silk's unique fiber signature. But the council president, draped in the shimmering robes of neutrality, shook his head. "We proceed with the vote." No delays. Xenocultures murmured assent. The momentum toward conflict proved hard to halt. Alone on the high walk, Selene watched assault shuttles clatter into launch bays. Her chest tightened as she considered the cost of waiting for bureaucracy. Warships would break orbit within the hour. With a decisive motion, she accessed a nearby docking cluster and commandeered a courier shuttle. Its hatch wheezed open, she climbed aboard and sealed the door. On the control panel, she overrode the freighter's manifest and set a jump vector pointing toward the Federation's deep scan arrays. "Mayday," she whispered to the silent comm channel. "This is Commander Ramirez. I have evidence of Crethean culpability." Broadcast halt. Static hissed. No answer. Selene's jaw hardened. Protocol be damned, if she didn't act now, Earth would pay in innocent lives. She keyed the thrusters, and the shuttle's engine flared in the dim bay. Gesture after gesture, she rerouted every Crethean warship's vector away from Earth's approach lanes, slipping into their encryption blind spots. As the vessel peeled away from Aegis Station, Selene felt the distant roar of Crethean engines stirring. Umar's final words, "Trust in humanity's promise," echoed in her mind, a beacon in the void. Clutching the silk fragment, she pressed her palm to the viewport, vowing to unveil the true architect of this massacre. Below, Viridian's mineral plains receded, and the horizon opened to a galaxy on the brink. Humanity's fate now rested in her hands, and she would not let it slip away. The aluminum hull trembled as the courier shuttle plummeted through Viridian 3's sulfur-laden sky. Sensors flared warnings, but Ramirez wrestled control, gripping the yoke until searing heat spat sparks across the cockpit. Acid rain hissed on the reinforced viewport, etching pockmarks in the thick plexiglass. With a bone-jarring impact, the vessel skidded across ochre dunes, its engines screaming sparks before dying into silence. Dazed, she kicked open the hatch, inhaled the tang of burnt circuitry, and activated her rebreather. Clutching the ambassador's encrypted report and the iridescent fragment of Crethean spider silk, she staggered toward a distant beacon of pulsing blue light, Aurora Spire. Inside Aurora Spire, slender towers of glass and alloy loomed beneath swirling storm clouds. Fluorescent algae dripped along corridors, casting emerald patterns on polished floors. Dr. Lien Kuro, an exiled xenologist known for decoding alien warcraft, crouched over a bank of holodisplays. His slender fingers flew across nanospectrometers, coaxing spectral data into readable form. He looked up in surprise when Ramirez burst in, her uniform smeared with dust and oil. "I feared you were lost," he murmured, voice rough with disbelief. She presented the silk fragment, its iridescent fibers glinting. His eyes narrowed. "This weave, military-grade Crethean spider silk. Unauthorized outside Imperial labs." He beckoned her closer, urgency sharpening his tone. Kuro accessed a private research node, and streams of glyphs cascaded across the holoscreen. "Overlay the spectral scan," he instructed. Patterns shifted, revealing buried encryption. "Here, Malak's signature kill order, stamped beneath diplomatic packets," the xenologist said, fingers trembling. Ramirez felt a cold thrill. "Broadcast it immediately," she urged. He shook his head. "Council's core is sealed. Any unsanctioned uplink triggers defensive protocols. This entire installation would be sacrificed to contain it." Ramirez paced, eyes darting over data conduits. "Then we find another way," she said, jaw set. The hum of distant thunder underscored their dilemma. Emerging through a maintenance hatch, they traversed winding tunnels etched with maintenance glyphs. "We need allies who still value truth," Kuro said. Ramirez nodded. "Someone with enough sway to protect the transmission." He tapped a comm crystal. Moments later, an armored gust displaced a bulkhead. Captain Arved San of the Arborian Guard strode in, an imposing figure crowned with bioluminescent vines that pulsed softly. His towering frame dwarfed the commander. He examined the fragment, then lifted his gaze to her. "You risked everything to unmask Crethean duplicity," he observed, voice deep with gravitas. "My flagship, Selene's Wrath, stands ready. Truth must prevail." Under the cloak of an electromagnetic storm, the trio embarked on Selene's wrath. The frigate's sensor-scrubbed hull shimmered with suppressed energy. Lightning arced overhead as they slipped past Crethean patrol drones using adaptive stealth weaves. Ramirez led the way through silent corridors, her reflexes honed by countless ops. At the communications bay, Kuro set up a portable splice module while San armed disruptor charges. "Once I engage the splice," Ramirez said, "it will unlock uplink channels for exactly 30 standard seconds." The xenologist's flickering algae-tattooed forearm hummed as he synchronized his console. "That window is all we get." Suddenly, klaxons blared. Gravlifts disgorged Crethean shock troopers in gunmetal armor, their pulse rifles igniting corridors in fiery streaks. San leapt forward, biovines whipping like living whips, knocking soldiers off balance. Ramirez activated her wrist-mounted stunner, each crackling bolt sending enemies sprawling. Sparks flew as troopers retaliated, rounds ricocheting off alloy plating. Kuro ducked behind a comm panel, fingers flying over holokeys. "Transmission in 5, he shouted over the cacophony. Blood-red warning sirens bathed the bay. Ramirez raised a protective shield as an energy blast scorched the floor at her feet. At 1, Kuro pressed the final sequence. Holoscreens across the frigate and through encrypted relays flickered to life, projecting holo recordings of Over-Marshal Malak signing the death warrant, intercut with live feeds of the gala assassination. Across 12 council outposts, delegates' faces froze as the irrefutable proof overwhelmed propagandistic denials. As the last glyph aligned, San detonated his disruptors, collapsing the array in a concussive wave that hurled debris through the bay. Escape pods ejected in a synchronized volley. Ramirez, Kuro, and Arif sprinted into a reinforced pod labeled Alpha 7. They slammed the hatch as the frigate's corridors erupted behind them. Inside, they braced against sudden acceleration, warning lights danced across the control panel. Through the viewport, they saw Crethean troopers frantically searching while holopanels across the galaxy blinked urgent alerts. Over-Marshal Tariq Malak's involvement confirmed. Indictment issued. Sanctions motion nullified. Cheers and stunned disbelief rippled through Allied channels. Weightless in the void, they watched Crethean warships abort their attack vectors, drifting like wounded leviathans. Kuro exhaled a shaky breath. "It worked," he whispered. Ramirez studied the star-speckled vista. "But Malak's flagship slipped past our blockade," she said, voice tight. "He'll reach Earth's system in under 30 hours. Sanus vines dim to a somber glow. Then we intercept him before he crosses Sol's fringe." He placed a massive hand on her shoulder. "We fight, or everything we saved today is lost." Ramirez keyed the pod's homing beacon to a concealed supply corvette lying in hidden orbit. She felt the ambassador's locket tremble in her pocket, a reminder of the cost already paid. Through the viewport, Viridian 3's storm-scoured planes receded into darkness as faster-than-light engines ignited. Each star they passed carried worlds at stake. The fragment of silk pressed against her heart, the weight of proof and promise. Ahead lay the true crucible, a boarding, a confrontation, and the chance to stop an interstellar war before its first casualty. The fight for humanity's fate had only just begun. The corvette shuddered as it disgorged proximity charges, the burst of electromagnetic interference cloaking its approach to the Crethean dreadnought. In zero-G silence, Lieutenant Commander Selene Ramirez gripped the drop pod's railing, her knuckles whitening. Beyond the viewport, the enemy ship's hull loomed like a monolithic predator, its gun ports yawning in readiness. She exchanged a terse nod with Captain Arif San and Dr. Lien Kuro. No words were needed. The pod's clasp released, and they hurtled toward the hull, magnetic grapplers screaming as they latched onto the scorched plating. With a jolt, they spilled into an external maintenance tunnel. Hull vents hissed steam, and warning strobes threw shifting shadows across the cramped passage. Ramirez ducked under a bulkhead, rifle held at port. Arif's bioluminescent vines glowed faintly, illuminating every corner. "Sensors report patrol drones approaching," Lien whispered, scanning his wrist console. 3 hostiles, closing fast. Ramirez tapped his arm. "Stay close." Their footsteps echoed as they drifted deeper, each breath weighed by the gravity of their mission. They emerged into a cavernous corridor lined with Creathian banners, plasma-etched runes celebrating conquest. A squad of shock troopers rounded the corner, rifles raised. Ramirez fired first, a stunner bolt singing through the air, knocking one soldier into the bulkhead. Arv vaulted forward, vines whipping like living tendrils, flinging 2 troopers off their feet. Metal clanged as Lian hurled a disruptor grenade, a concussive wave sent the last combatant sprawling. Silence returned, broken only by the hiss of power conduits. Ahead, the War Council chamber doors slid open to reveal a panoramic holomap, hundreds of star systems marked in glowing red. At its head stood Over-Marshal Tariq Malak, regal in his obsidian armor. He addressed his assembled officers, "Soon, Earth will burn." His voice echoed, cold and triumphant. Celine stepped forward, rifle raised. "Not today, Malak." Officers turned, surprised to see human and Arborian faces leading the charge. The Over-Marshal's lips curled into a sneer. "A pathetic human child dares confront me?" The ensuing clash was swift and violent. Blaster fire erupted as troopers surged. Ramirez sprinted toward Malak's dais, weaving between energy bolts. She vaulted over the console, rifle swinging in a wide arc to clear her path. Malak drew a pulse blade, its violet edge humming with lethal intent. He lunged. Ramirez sidestepped, firing her sidearm, the shot scorched his shoulder plate. Sparks ignited at the wound. He roared and slashed, blade flashing. She ducked, the blade grazing her helmet before she rammed her rifle but into his chest. They circled amid upturned chairs and electrified wiring. "You hide behind lies and slaughter," Ramirez spat, voice steady. "I stand for truth." Malak laughed, iridescent visor reflecting her determined eyes. He struck again, knocking her rifle aside. She rolled, kicking a stray console into his path. The Over-Marshal stumbled but recovered instantly, blade poised for the final blow. In that heartbeat, Arv and Lien emerged. "Now," the captain bellowed. Lien detonated a makeshift charge on the main power conduit. The ship quaked as systems overloaded. Alarms blared. Bulkheads sealed. Troopers found themselves trapped as electrified barriers surged to life. Malak roared in fury, pressing his blade against Ramirez's throat. "Earth will crumble," he hissed. She twisted free, fists rising. In one fluid motion, she disarmed him, sending the pulse blade skittering across the deck. With her rifle leveled at his chest, she produced the Creathian silk fragment. "Confess," she commanded. "Admit you ordered the ambassador's death." Malak glared, defiance etched on his brow. Celine's finger hovered on the trigger. "The galaxy is listening." His armor's communication node crackled. Malak drew a trembling breath. "I authorized the strike," he snarled, voice cracking. "I feared humanity's rise." Every council outpost flickered to life with his admission, holofeeds streaming his coerced confession across the void. Troops around them lowered weapons, the weight of truth dissolving their fanaticism. Moments later, in the strobing glow of emergency lights, Ramirez radioed the Federation home fleet, hostile flagship secured. Evidence broadcast. Enemy forces powerless. She slumped against the bulkhead, fatigue and relief warring in her chest. Arv placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You've held the line." Lien removed his comm crystal, eyes moist. "History will remember this day." They boarded the waiting corvette, its pilot nodding grimly at their ragged uniforms. As engines engaged, the dreadnought drifted inert behind them, its threat neutralized. In the viewport, stars stretched into lightspeed trails. Ramirez closed her eyes, summoning the memory of Khalid Umar's hopeful face. She unclasped his locket from her belt and held it tight. "We did it for you," she whispered. Days later, back on Aegis Station, flags of all 12 xenocultures flew at half-mast around a marble plinth bearing Umar's image. Celine laid a wreath of interstellar blooms at its base. Delegates from every council gathered in solemn unity. The Arborians drummed a low cadence, Hosian technates lowered their crystalline staffs. Selene's voice steadied as she spoke into the silent hall. He believed in unity. We deliver on that promise. Heads bowed, and a ripple of respectful applause filled the chamber. In her private quarters, she opened Umar's final report, a map indicating unsurveyed systems and potential allies. Each new world represented hope. She placed the locket atop the holomap, its tiny shape glinting. Outside her window, Aegis Station's domes reflected the gem-blue planet below. Humanity had earned its seat among the stars. Yet the universe remained vast and uncertain. Selene seated herself before the observation deck once more. She inhaled the silent hum of the station and allowed herself a rare smile. Onward, she murmured, voice firm with resolve. The stars beckoned, and she would answer that call, ever vigilant, ever human. The endless expanse of space stretched before Selene Ramirez like a dark canvas, dotted with the distant glimmer of stars. The silence aboard the corvette Aegis was unnerving, broken only by the occasional hum of the ship's systems. Selene stood in the small observation bay, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as she stared into the void. It had been 30 hours since they had stopped Malak's flagship, 30 hours since the galaxy had learned the truth. The storm of consequences was yet to come, and Selene felt the weight of that storm pressing on her shoulders. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft chime of her comms. "Commander Ramirez, we're approaching Earth's outer defense perimeter," said Captain Arif San, his voice low and controlled. "Understood. I'll be there shortly," Selene replied, wiping her face and taking a deep breath. She moved briskly to the bridge, where Lien Kuro and San were already monitoring the display. The holoscreen flickered with the familiar expanse of the Earth Defense Fleet. Her heart sank slightly. The fleets were gathering, but they weren't there to welcome her or her team, they were preparing for the storm that Malak had set in motion. "We need to get this data to the Council, and we need to do it now," Lien said, tapping on his console with urgency. "The sooner they see what we've uncovered, the quicker we can start planning our next move. We don't have much time before Malak's allies rally their forces." "I'm aware," Selene replied. "But Earth isn't safe yet. We'll need to be careful about who we trust." Her eyes flickered toward the comm terminal, which displayed encrypted channels from the Federation Council. "We've exposed Malak, but the fallout is just beginning." Arif gripped the back of the chair, his usual calm demeanor betraying a flicker of concern. "The Creathians won't go down without a fight. We can't afford to wait for the Council's approval to defend Earth. If they make a move, we need to be ready." Selene nodded, her eyes scanning the fleet's formations. The Federation had a powerful navy, but the Creathians were known for their ruthless efficiency. If Malak's allies attempted a counterstrike, Earth's outer defenses would be the first to feel the impact. A silent tension gripped the bridge as the team watched the sensors update with new readings. The Creathian fleets had indeed regrouped, their positions aligning in a battle formation just beyond the range of Earth's defense perimeter. "We're outnumbered," Lien muttered, his fingers flying over the console. "But we can buy some time. The Selene's Wrath is still holding position, and we can relay fire support." "I don't need fire support," Selene said sharply, her voice cutting through the tension. "I need to make sure Earth has a fighting chance." She turned to Arif. "Get the fleet's commanders on a secured channel. I want Earth's defenses locked down and ready for whatever comes next." The captain immediately moved into action, tapping a series of commands on his console. The network of communication channels shifted as Arif connected with the Federation commanders. Selene's mind was already calculating their next moves, how best to position Earth's fleet, how to counter the Creathians' superior firepower, how to ensure that they didn't face a devastating surprise attack. The days of negotiation were over. Now, it was time for a new kind of diplomacy, one where humanity had to prove its strength, not with words, but with actions. An incoming transmission buzzed across the bridge, and Selene's pulse quickened. "This is Admiral Hayes of Earth's First Fleet. Commander Ramirez, we're tracking the Creathian warships, but they're not responding to any Federation calls. They're preparing to fire." The Admiral's voice was steady, but the urgency was clear. What's our status, Admiral? Celine asked, leaning into the communication array. We've got full shields up, Commander, but their weapon systems are more advanced than expected. We're holding position, but if they engage, the message cut off with a burst of static. The tension was palpable. Celine straightened. We can't afford hesitation. Prepare Earth's fleet for counterattack, she said, her voice cold with resolve. The channel went dead, and the weight of the decision settled on her shoulders. Celine, Arv's voice broke through the tension, his tone more urgent than before. You need to see this. She turned to the screen, her heart racing. The Crethean fleet had split into two groups, one circling Earth's outer defenses while the other, led by a monstrous flagship, veered toward a direct assault. The flagship's weapon systems glowed with a deadly anticipation. They're aiming for Earth's capital station, Arv said, his voice thick with disbelief. They're going for the heart of the Federation. Then we stop them before they can make a move, Celine said firmly. Lien, I need you to hack their targeting systems. Get their weapons offline. Lien worked swiftly, his fingers flying over the console. Working on it now, he muttered. The glow of the terminal reflected in his tired eyes. But I'll need a few minutes, just keep them from firing long enough, Commander. Celine nodded, her gaze shifting back to the holoscreen as she observed the enemy fleet drawing closer. Her pulse thrummed in her ears. This was it. There was no going back now. It was no longer about proving humanity's worth to the Council, it was about saving Earth. The seconds dragged by like hours as her fingers hovered over her comms. She contacted Admiral Hayes again, her voice calm but laced with steel. Admiral, we've got one shot at this. Earth's fleet can hold off the Cretheans, but we need you to act on my orders. No hesitation. The transmission crackled as the Admiral's voice came through. Understood, Commander. What are your orders? Keep your fleet in a defensive formation. Have them engage the Crethean fleet at long range, but don't close the gap unless we give the signal. Lien is working on disabling their weapons. We'll give them one chance to retreat. If they refuse, we'll show them that humanity's patience has run out. The Admiral's voice was steady. We'll follow your lead. As the fleet's battle formations locked into place, Celine took a moment to breathe. Her mind raced, her pulse steadying as she reflected on how far they had come. From the moment she had watched Ambassador Umar's blood spill across the floor, everything had shifted. The fate of humanity now rested not just on their survival, but on their ability to fight with everything they had, and prove that Earth was no longer a place to be underestimated. All channels open, Lien said, his voice breaking through her thoughts. Now, we fight, Celine murmured, watching the Crethean fleet draw ever closer.